Okay, so let's talk about one of the trickiest parts of property ownership, raising rents. It's a real tightrope walk, right? You need to keep things profitable, but, well, the last thing you want is a mass exodus of good tenants. Today, we're doing a deep dive into how to do this strategically.
Exactly. And the big question is really, how do you raise rents without just, driving away your best tenants or ending up with empty units? This deep dive, it's designed to give you a clear, actionable plan, something built on solid analysis. And we're even going to reveal, I think, a crucial missing piece that traditional approaches often just overlook.
All right, so you're trying to navigate that tricky terrain, profitability versus keeping your tenants happy. But the first move our research suggests, well, I actually surprise you a bit. It says before you even think about raising prices, you need to improve the property's value and amenities. Now, this feels counterintuitive to me. Why is spending money the absolute, foundational step here?
Yeah, it can seem that way. Think of it like this, though. Most owners only think about raising rents when they need more money, right? But the analysis kind of flips that on its head. It argues the real leverage comes from creating more value first. You're not just increasing a number, you're actually increasing the worth of the living experience for the tenant. So that proactive investment, it isn't just about justification later on. It's about making your property, well, frankly, irresistible to tenants who will happily pay more. It turns what could be a dreaded conversation into a much clearer value proposition.
Okay, that makes sense. So, what kinds of improvements are we talking about specifically? What truly moves the needle here?
Well, the analysis breaks it down really nicely. For multi-unit properties, it's often about upgrading those common areas.
Hmm.
Lobbies, maybe laundry rooms,
Mm-hmm.
outdoor spaces, simple things really. Fresh paint, some new furniture, maybe better lighting could make a huge difference. Then, of course, individual unit improvements, like renovating kitchens and bathrooms with more modern finishes. Think upgraded appliances, fresh flooring, maybe even smart home tech. These are examples that can genuinely command a higher rent.
Right, right.
And don't forget curb appeal. That first impression,
Yeah.
it matters. So good landscaping, maybe new paint on the exterior, or even just a fresh front door. It increases perceived value from the moment someone drives up.
Those all make perfect sense, especially the individual unit upgrades. People see that directly. But on the amenity side, I've definitely heard stories of owners sinking a ton of money into, say, a rooftop deck or a fancy gym, only to find tenants barely use them. Does the research offer any insight into what amenities actually get used and, more importantly, valued by tenants enough that they'll pay more?
That's a great point, and yes, it definitely emphasizes that. It suggests things like in-unit laundry, reliable high-speed internet, secure parking, or even being pet-friendly are often highly valued. The key isn't just to add any amenity. It's about attracting those higher-paying tenants by offering what they actually value. And there's a crucial pro tip here. Focus on improvements that truly align with the needs and expectations of your specific target tenant demographic. Don't just, throw money at something nobody really wants or needs.
Okay, got it. Align the spending with who you want to attract. So once you've polished up the property, what's next? This is where many owners seem to stumble, according to our research. It calls the second step the often overlooked but absolutely critical task, evaluating the market regularly. Why is this so vital, and what's the real cost if
Yeah.
you just skip this part?
Well, if you think about the bigger picture, understanding your local rental market is just. It's non-negotiable if you want to set competitive rents. Skipping it basically means you're operating in the dark, completely. You could be pricing yourself too low, leaving significant money on the table, or maybe worse, too high, leading to frustratingly long vacancies and high tenant turnover. Regular evaluation keeps you informed about trends, helps you spot opportune times for increases, and just ensures your rents are perfectly aligned with market demand. It's fundamental.
Okay, so what's the playbook then? How do you actually do this market evaluation? What data points should you be zeroing in on?
The analysis outlines several key ways. First, you absolutely need to research comparable rentals, or comps as they're called. This means looking at similar properties in your specific area. You need to consider their size and layout, their age and condition, and of course the amenities they offer. There are platforms like Zillow, Apartments.com, or Rentometer. They're excellent tools for comparing rents effectively.
Right, the comps.
Second, you have to monitor local market trends. What's happening nearby? Stay updated on factors influencing demand, like is the population growing or shrinking? How's the local job market? Are there new developments coming in that might shift things?
And there's a timing element too, right? Like seasonality. You wouldn't necessarily want to raise rents in the dead of winter, would you?
Exactly. Understanding seasonality is incredibly important. Rental demand often peaks in spring and summer. So, planning your rent increases during those high-demand periods can significantly minimize your vacancy risk.
Makes sense, right? Finally, and this is key, you absolutely must factor in inflation and your own operating expenses. You need to regularly assess your costs, property taxes, maintenance, insurance, they all go up. Your rent increases need to help cover these rising expenses, but crucially, without unfairly pricing your current tenants out of the market. It's a balance.
So, you've made the improvements, you've done your market homework. Now, how do you actually land on that new rent price? What's the formula, so to speak, for hitting that sweet spot of competitive yet profitable? Yeah, this step is all about striking that perfect balance. You want to remain competitive naturally, but also maximize your income. So first, you calculate your minimum rent. What does it absolutely cost you each month? This means adding up all your monthly expenses, mortgage payments, property management fees if you use them, maintenance and repairs budget, taxes, insurance, everything. That figure, that's your baseline. It's what you need just to cover costs,
Yeah.
your absolute floor.
Okay, so that's the bare minimum. Don't go below this line.
Yeah.
Got it. But once you have that floor, how does the analysis advise figuring out what the market will actually bear without just guessing?
Right, good question. That's where your market research from step 2 comes right back in. You use that data, those comps, to determine the market rent, basically. The average rent for truly comparable properties in your area right now. Then you factor in a reasonable profit margin onto that market rent to determine your target rent. Now, the research also strongly suggests considering a gradual approach. Instead of one massive hike every few years, which can shock tenants, maybe consider smaller, regular increases, perhaps 3% to 5% annually. This helps you keep pace with inflation and avoids that sticker shock for your tenants, makes it more predictable. And just to reinforce the earlier point, introducing rent increases after you've completed those renovations or added those valuable amenities makes the increase significantly easier for tenants to accept and, frankly, understand. They see the value.
Okay, this next part. This is where things can get sensitive, I imagine. Even if you've done all the legwork, all the improvements, the research, how do you actually communicate a rent increase without causing friction or, worse, losing a really good tenant?
Yeah, this is critical. Clear, professional, and honestly empathetic communication is absolutely key here. It's really how you maintain good relationships and reduce that costly tenant turnover. So first things first, you must follow all legal guidelines. No shortcuts. Check your local laws carefully regarding notice periods and any limits on rent increases. Most places require, 30 to 60 days notice, but it varies.
Right, so it's definitely not just a quick text message or like a sticky note on the door then.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely heard horror stories of people trying that.
Oh, absolutely not. Please don't do that. The analysis makes it crystal clear. This isn't just a legal formality, it's a critical moment for your tenant relations. You need to provide proper written notice, a formal letter, or maybe an email. It needs to clearly outline the new rent amount, the exact date it becomes effective, and crucially, the reasons for the increase. Be transparent. This is your chance to highlight the added value, especially if you've made upgrades. For example, you could explicitly state something like, to improve your living experience, we've recently added high-speed internet access and upgraded the kitchen appliances. To reflect these enhancements in current market conditions, the rent will increase to $6 starting on date. Our research also emphasizes being open to questions. Let tenants know they can reach out to discuss concerns. That transparency really fosters trust and understanding, even when the news isn't necessarily what they hoped for.
That makes a lot of sense, being upfront and tying it back to value. So, okay, you've navigated the communication, implemented the increase, but the work isn't quite over yet, right? How do you know if your strategy is actually working? What should you be tracking to ensure you're really hitting that sweet spot you mentioned?
You're absolutely right. The work is never truly over in property management. It's ongoing. The final step is really all about monitoring key metrics. This helps you ensure you're balancing that profitability with occupancy. Our research suggests tracking, first, your tenant retention rates. A high retention rate after an increase. That's a strong indicator your tenants generally find the new rent reasonable and the value proposition clear. They're staying. You also need to keep a close eye on your vacancy rates. The goal, obviously, is to keep them low by pricing competitively and maintaining the property well. And finally, measure your time to fill vacancies. How quickly can you find qualified new tenants at that new higher rent price? That tells you a lot about market acceptance.
And if those numbers, well, if they aren't looking so hot, say retention drops or vacancies drag on, what's your next move then?
Yeah, that's the feedback loop. The pro tip here is definitely to reevaluate your pricing strategy and your market position if you encounter significant pushback from tenants, or if you find yourself with extended vacancies after the increase. It's truly a continuous process. You use the data you're tracking, retention, vacancy, time to fill to adjust and refine your approach over time. This ensures your property remains both a desirable place to live and a profitable asset for you.
So there you have it, 5 pretty clear strategic steps for raising rents. It really emphasizes the critical importance of, well, planning and careful execution for long-term success, not just those short-term gains.
Exactly. And if we pull all this together, step back a bit, it's clear that successful rent increases aren't just about crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. They're fundamentally about continuously understanding your market, then adding real value to your property, and finally transparently communicating that value to your tenants. The whole process.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? If you're a property owner, or maybe even just thinking about getting into it, what's one small improvement, maybe? Or one piece of market research you could start with today, right now, to boost value and understanding for your next potential rent adjustment? Something to think about.